Before we start, come on visit thedealconfidence.com and click the subscribe button and also hit like. If you want to be updated on our new upload, just hit the notification bell and you'll be updated automatically. Now let's proceed to the video.
That's not an unreasonable deal. Is this an older landlord?
No.
No.
Okay. So
younger guy.
Okay. So maybe older. The reason why I asked if they were older is because the 70 and 80-year-olds who are tired of dealing with tenants, many of them love the idea of just being the bank because they don't have to chase it. Well, in fast evict states like Georgia, they don't have to chase after you to make payments because if you don't pay them, they're just going to foreclose. They're going to keep your $12,000, keep whatever payments you've made up till now, foreclose you off, and in Georgia they can get you out in a month and change. So they can actually make more money off of you if you default than if you pay them. So they're not afraid of foreclosure in Georgia. I don't know the laws for Wisconsin, so I don't know how hard or easy that is to do. But even so, I would make the offer and let them tell you why they don't like it. And if they don't like it because the numbers are not what they want, then find out what you can do based on your spreadsheet and then adjust the numbers accordingly. Or, and I lay all this out in contrast to what most people do. Most people will go in and say, well, I'm not going to pay you 112, I'm going to pay you 80. And you tick off the seller and they're never going to go that low and you never get a deal.
Right.
Here, the 112 almost is irrelevant, right? Because you're not paying 112. I mean, you'll pay it over time eventually, but at zero interest if you do it the way I'm suggesting. But even better, you're not paying 112 up front. You're paying 12 up front, if even that much. You're paying, what, 10%, a little bit over 10% is what I propose. I propose you not start with anything a whole lot more than 10%. Let him tell you 10% is not enough. But $12,000 for this property is going to do really nice things for your cash and cash return because you're going to be in it for so little money that your numbers are going to be awesome.
Oh, sure.
So
what would be a reason why the seller can't do seller financing? He told us that he can only seller finance a portion of it, not all of it.
So they say that because they have debt on the property that, so he's thinking he can only seller finance his equity.
Okay.
And he can seller finance his equity, but he can also, let's make math easy for me again. Let's say he has a $100,000 loan on this thing. So he only has, under the best of circumstances, $12,000 in equity. He thinks it's worth 112. He owes 100,000. So he would, even if you sold to him for cash, he'd only net $12,000, right?
Right.
Sure. Yeah.
Because they pay off the 100,000. So in that situation, he might be thinking, well, I'll take payments on my 12,000, but I got to pay off the $100,000 in debt. Except he doesn't. That's the beauty of subject to. If he's willing to let you take over that payment, then you can make the payment on that $100,000 debt. It stays in his name, but you take responsibility for making the payment, and you might also pay him a little bit on his $12,000 in equity.
Sure. Okay.
So subject to is the answer to what happens if they don't own it free and clear.
Sure. Okay. Subject to is the answer. Because I don't have a pen, so if Mark, if you could write that down, that'd be great.
Yep.
And just so you know, we're recording this, and the replay will be available. It won't be available tonight, but maybe by Sunday, I hope it'll be back out on the in the group.
Okay. So I have another question. We haven't put it on the spreadsheet, but we did the deal confidence part, the numbers part. Where do people find contracts that they use? Do you guys come up with your own seller financing contracts? Who has these contracts? Where do we find them?
So that's a good question. And the good news is there's no special seller finance contract. It's just it's a contract with terms. And so instead of it saying, I'm going to pay you $112,000 in cash, you'll modify, you could edit. If you have a contract that you use that says, I'll pay you $112,000 in cash, you would just change that line to be, I'm going to pay you $112,000 in the following way: $12,000 in down payment and $100,000 in terms, with the following terms: $800 a month for, and you have to do the math to see exactly how many months you'll need to pay it
Sure,
to get
sure.
that down. But you put all that into the agreement, and that's it. There's nothing special about.
Oh, okay, okay.
Yes,
okay.
there's no, other than specifying the terms, the monthly, the down payment, and again, you won't say anything about interest rate because it won't be an interest rate, but monthly and down payment, and term, how long this is going to go for. That's all you need to do to at least have the agreement cover all the bases. You might also specify things like, you'll take care of taxes and insurance, so you won't. But that typically is understood to be the case if it's a sale anyway. So basically, the question is, how are you going to pay them 112? You're going to pay them 12,000 or whatever your down payment is up front, and the $100,000 balance to be paid over, I can't do that math in my head, however many months.
Sure,
at $800 a month or whatever you end up deciding the number is. But that's it. That's the only change that you need to make to your agreement to turn a all cash deal into a terms deal.
Okay, got it. And the subject to is if for some reason he owes money on it yet.
Correct. Now, if he does subject to, then it'll be a little bit different. You'll, instead of saying, let's use the example I gave before. In that case, it would be, let's say you agree to pay him all $12,000 at closing. So the down payment that you pay goes all to him. The $100,000 that's the remaining, that's what's owed on the mortgage. So you're going to say, I'm going to pay $112,000 in the following way: $12,000 paid at closing and $100,000 debt taken subject to.
Okay.
And then whatever the terms of the existing loan that he's got would be the terms that you would have to accept. You would accept all those terms. So you'd want to see what those terms are. Is it a fixed rate? Is it a variable rate?
Oh, sure. Okay.
Because if it's a horrible loan, it's now your horrible loan. So you want to know the details of that loan, but in the paperwork, you simply say you would take over this debt with whatever terms and conditions are already existing. And you could specify those if you wanted to, but they'd be whatever that those terms are for now.
Okay.
Now, if you do decide to go subject to, I recommend paperwork at very least from a guy that operates out of actually a bunch of states, but he's actually based in Georgia. A guy named Dykes Boterford. He's got some of the cleanest subject to. Have you heard of him before?
No, I've never heard of him.
Okay, but the important thing is for subject to, you want good solid paperwork, not so much the purchase and sale agreement. It's all the other stuff that you want to have along with it that you're going to need to have in place. And we can talk about that if it gets to that point.
Yes. Okay. Yes. Okay. That sounds good. That was our biggest concern. She was like, where do we get paperwork for this? The seller is just kind of writing stuff down. So we don't have any actual agreement or terms or anything. Yep.
So you're going to have, if he decides that he wants to move forward with this, then you will provide all the paperwork.
Okay.
And you will give him the stuff that he's got to sign. Is he owning this? Does he own this thing in his personal name, or does he own it in an LLC or
It's an LLC.
It's an LLC.
Okay.
He has a business partner too. I don't know if that makes a difference or not, but
it does, because that means he is not by himself the decision maker.
Correct.
Yeah.
Okay. So you want to present. So I wouldn't bother with the contract up front. I would do something written, but basically it's effectively a letter of intent. It's just say, here's what I propose that we do. Does this work for you?
Gotcha. Okay.
Going through the trouble of paperwork at this point, because both of them have to, assuming it's just two of them, they'd have to both sign off on it. I will say that if these were civilians, regular people, their financing is probably easier to take subject to. I have not taken commercial financing subject to. In theory, there shouldn't be any difficulty with it, but find out who he owes the debt. If he has debt on it, find out who he owes that debt to, and you might want to find as much information as you can about the underlying debt. Would be helpful for you.
Okay.
But the cool thing about this is you're solving his problem.
Right.
And so, if he's willing to work with you, then this could be something that benefits you and him. If he doesn't,
Right.
you're no worse off than you are right now. But if you don't ask, he's never going to suggest this. So it's on you to put it in front of him and see what he has to say.
Okay. That sounds good.
One last thing I'll throw out there. Have you discussed with him at all the possibility of a lease purchase?
Yeah, not necessarily the lease purchase. So we had talked about seller finance because we thought that would be the best route for us, but he might, I think he had mentioned a lease purchase in the beginning. We have not brought it up again, but that might be an option too. I'm not quite sure.
Yeah, I mean, if he doesn't go for the seller financing, then I won't say the next best thing, but an alternative is to, basically that's kind of what you're doing now, right? You're leasing it from him and then you're subleasing it to these two nurses.
Yep.
And this just, well, let me ask you this: is your end game to ultimately move out and fill and so do 4 nurses?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay. So when you do that, you will basically be doing a sandwich lease. You'll be leasing it from him and then and subleasing it to them.
Okay.
And so, and that's not bad. We've done sandwich leases before. It's not my favorite way to do it. I much prefer to get the deed because that way you have complete control.
Right.
But I would start with the seller finance and see what take his temperature on that. Because again, there's no downside for you. And there's still a few other cards you can play here, but let's at least see what his objection might be to seller financing. And if he doesn't have any objection, then let's go for it.
Yeah. Okay.
That help?
Sounds good.
That helps. Absolutely.
Awesome.
Yeah, it helps a lot. Thank you.
Well, that's a great question. I'm glad that you asked that. And Addie and Marc, I do definitely want to talk to you guys about travel nurse housing in general.
Yeah.
Because that is something that I know you talked to, I think it was someone in my.
It was. I can't remember his name. But he was.
Was it Jason Russian?
Yes.
Okay. So I know he's been looking into that. He and I have been looking into that together. And I know you are a travel nurse, correct?
Yep. Yes.
So we definitely want to pick your brain on markets and because this, as you know better than anybody else, this can be extremely lucrative, and travel nurse housing skirts the traditional obstacles that short-term rentals face, because usually those can't be done for 30 days or less. Well, you guys are in place for like 11 weeks. Is that the standard?
13 weeks. Yep.
Okay. So we don't, so places that won't allow short-term rentals that are 30 days or less, travel nurse housing fits perfectly in with that because it doesn't.
It does. Yep.
And the numbers can be, if you could fill this unit with travel nurses all the way through, it's $2,800 a month.
Yeah.
That's a sweet deal.
Right.
And so, so I got to ask this one last question. If that's the case, could you find 2 more nurses?
Oh yeah.
So here's my question.
For sure.
Even if you couldn't, could you guys are living here now because is it a convenience thing, or is it do you just like what I'm really asking is, could you find someplace else to live and start collecting another $1,400 a month?
Probably.
Okay.
I'm sure we could, yeah.
I'm sure we could. I think it's a convenience thing.
Particularly if you use the same seller finance strategy on somebody else that wasn't this guy. So if this guy says no, you might. I'm willing to bet that someone in that town would be willing to seller finance to you, so that you don't have to go get a loan to buy property, and then you can move out of this one, move into that one without a loan, and then build this one with 2 more tenants, getting you another $1,400 a month, and get paid with the capital P. Right.
You can. Yeah, that's doable.
So just having subject to and seller finance in your back pocket, it's a game changer because it means, you never have to deal with another bank again if you don't want to. You can buy this for your tenants, but you can also do this for yourself.
Right.
So just keep in mind that you have a lot more cards to play than you might realize. And if this seller doesn't let you do what you want, you really just want it'd be nice to own the duplex, but you really just want the cash flow right now. And if you can get the cash flow from 2 additional travel nurses living there, then that's a pretty decent deal.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
So anyway, let me know how that works out. Please feel free to come back and let's talk about, however far you get, whatever questions or pushback you get from the landlord. And let's see if we can help you get this deal done.
Yeah, sounds good. Thank you.
Awesome. My pleasure.
Thank you, Mitch.
Oh, my pleasure. Thanks for bringing a great deal to the group.
If you haven't seen the duplex financing part 1, go please check the description below to watch the part 1 of this video. Do not forget to click like and subscribe and always turn on the notification bell to get updated on our latest upload. Thank you for watching and have a great deal.